If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride all while supporting your favorite podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. Shop now at dragonwagonradio.com/shop and get your dragon swag on.
Well, it appears the mic works, even though you trash-talked it last week on this little show called The Hell With This.
I never said it didn't work. I just said it was stupid.
Mm-hmm. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. You've been out for several months. You're finally back in town. Semi-permanently until the next out-of-town job.
Honestly, I can't remember the last time we even sat down to do something. I know it was in the middle of my whole New York soiree.
Mm-hmm. Ice Pirates, I think, was the last one we did.
Yes. Ice Pirates.
That complete waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, when we lost like half our viewership because they love it so much. Sorry, Ice Pirates lovers, but guess what?
It's no good.
We did not love that movie.
So
I'm back.
You're back.
Did
we even talk about what job you were on? Do you want to?
I was on Mr. Robot. Still I'm on Mr. Robot.
And I haven't seen 1 minute of that whole show.
Oh my god. That's unfortunate. Why haven't you watched it?
Because I got a lot of things to do in life.
Yeah? Like record this podcast once every 3 months?
Yes. That really gets in the way. I didn't miss it at all.
Well, hopefully we'll get to record more of these from now on, just because now that I'm back in town.
Mm-hmm. And you also took a trip to Fiji.
Yeah, I took my honeymoon with Orla. That was a blast. We went to Fiji for 2 weeks.
When did you get married?
October 7th of last year.
Almost a year
later. Hey, I mean, I know plenty of people who haven't taken their honeymoons yet, and it's years after. So.
Yeah, I haven't taken mine because I'm not married. And everybody's going to be making fun of me.
And you never will. By choice, right?
It's by choice.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Haven't we?
Yeah, I think so.
On the air. This
I
very
hope so.
Public atmosphere.
Well, let's really dig into it now, Chad.
So,
are you glad you went to New
Did you
York
have more
for 6
fun
months?
with Jake than you had with me?
Oh, for sure.
I did
Alexandra was
enjoy
there
your
too.
guys' episode. It made me want to go watch Hudsucker again. I will say that.
I listened to the episode.
Yeah.
Or at least the first half before I got
Was
bored.
that the first time you listened to our show?
No, I've listened to other episodes, but I got tired of hearing myself talk, so I stopped about halfway through. But man, the trailer for Hudsucker Proxy bites. That trailer is awful.
You didn't like the sound of it?
They make it sound like it's in the vein of Liar Liar or something like.
What was that music from?
I don't know.
Because it's obviously not the.
Yeah. It's one of those like fast paced.
Yeah, it's all those trailers back then were like this exact same 3 songs. That's why I like when I was working at Fox Music and we were doing licensing, and they told me like the number 1 licensed songs were like Bishop's Countdown from Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
That was in every trailer. Now I just I cannot imagine that song ever being used again.
Because it's so familiar.
You would hear it and you'd be like, well, this is almost like the trailer's making fun of itself at that point.
Well, I think, you know how some trailers and films these days, they'll use an older distributor logo, like the old MGM logo or the old Universal logo, etc. I think if you wanted to do a throwback 90s trailer, then you would use Bishop's Countdown. If you're going for that vibe. It's a matter of time before they do 90s nostalgia films. Nostalgia.
Yeah, I wondered when that was going to happen because they're already doing 2000s.
Did we skip 90s?
Nostalgias. Yeah, seems like it. There's some. I mean, I know. What was that movie that Jonah Hill did the 90s or
mid-90s.
Mid-90s, let's say.
That was like about his childhood, I assume.
It's supposed to be great, too.
Trent Reznor did the score.
Did he really?
And Atticus Ross, I guess.
That's so random. I don't know. I've always wondered that because I feel like it's a weird niche in time. Especially now, when at the time you're thinking nothing could be more basic than the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seemed very plain. And I guess it still is.
Except for alternative rock.
Yeah, except for all those crazy rockers and their mosh pits.
Yeah, do people mosh anymore? I broke a rib in a mosh pit.
We were kind of just talking about this at work.
Oh.
Yeah, they do. But it's now it's like there's no... I don't know. This is a whole other topic.
That's fine.
We're getting onto music.
We got all day. And so do our listeners.
I was thinking of that, though. I was like, who's the new Trent Reznor? Like, where did that whole era of like, where did all the industrial rocker types go? Like, what did that merge into?
We still had Trent Reznor. He's still Trent Reznor.
Yeah, but who are the young kids going after these days?
Now it's Miley Cyrus.
Is it Miley or is it Billie Eilish?
That too.
Because her music's darker.
Yeah.
I don't know who...
Well, I mentioned...
Miley's more like Madonna.
Did you see that episode of Black Mirror that she did?
No.
Did you hear about it? You know what I'm talking about?
I think I know it. I didn't hear anything about it, but I know of it.
Miley Cyrus plays a pop star in some sort of future on Black Mirror.
Uh-huh.
And all of her songs are pop versions of Nine Inch Nails songs.
Oh, really?
Then they go through some sort of sci-fi thing, and they're trying to extract songs directly from her brain. But when they get them that way, they're much angrier and much closer to
the
original that we know.
Interesting.
Yeah. And she ends the episode singing Head Like a Hole.
Well, everything's so, like, kind of glossed over now. Like, there is a dark edge, but it's not in rock music anymore. It's in rap. I would say hip hop, and like forms of like other styles, but not. There's something it's different. Like, it felt kind of visceral in the 90s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole, like, Trent Reznor, Woodstock 1994,
smashing
like,
every piece of equipment, throwing the keys out into the audience, like mud fights, and
God is dead and no one cares. That attitude, that is definitely not prevalent today. Yeah, I'm kind of curious where that went, and it came out of, like, feeling like your life had no, because that was like back in the 90s when it was like there wasn't a big event. I feel like we had this conversation back pre 9/11. Like, the generations complained about how their generation had nothing to do because there was no
wars,
no World War II to define them, and that, it's like totally changed since then.
We were sounding a lot like Tyler Durden suddenly.
Yeah, right.
Our Great Depression is our lives.
Right. Well, is that why? Is that what all that music came out of? There's angry music now, but it is angrier, the stuff that I have heard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like screamo, like...
Screamo, is that a genre?
Yeah, I would say so. Screamo, death metal, it's there, but it's like it's been adopted by... I don't know what kind of culture is like the UFC culture, as opposed to...
They were talking like the hardcore,
yeah. Let's beat the shit out of each other. Which it is so different from the mid-90s, like Nine Inch Nails. That, and Marilyn Manson, like, that was more of there was kind of that weird gothic edge to it all, I guess.
But now the angry people are...
We just sound old.
Yeah.
We just sound old.
I'm 37 years old.
So, I just was reminded of what movie we're about to watch.
English Patient.
Yes. I am forcing Mark to watch The English Patient.
I've never seen it. I remember it being a huge deal at the Oscars that year. I always wanted to see it.
Yeah. This small little movie that won the Best Picture of the year.
Yeah, I thought we were doing underrated films.
Well, hey,
maybe some people underrate it because it seems like a stodgy old British drama that's 3 hours long.
Yeah, I mean, because I didn't want to see this when it came out, and it took me a long time to see it.
I've got a copy up on my shelf right there. You brought the Blu-ray.
You haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
It's one of those movies that I think I've seen 2 or 3 times now, and because I hadn't seen it until maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and was a little floored by how good it is and just how it's definitely one of those. It brings along with it, like, it's a very classical genre film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it feels like Lawrence of Arabia in that sense.
Yeah, I remember a lot of comparisons.
Obviously visually, but also I think the story it doesn't intertwine with Lawrence of Arabia, but it definitely...
Well, it's out in the desert. There's military...
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where. Happening. It's like Casablanca. I mean, all those movies.
I've never seen Lawrence
they
of
were
Arabia
all like
either.
North Africa, like World War II.
Mm-hmm.
They were not like, Germany or
right.
Those kind of World War II.
A different
movies.
side of World
the
War
other
II.
Side of it, a little bit more removed. But
we
still.
almost did Downfall, which is really the other side of World War II.
Yeah. The whole list of movies today was just like long and slow, and it's Sunday morning.
But when the meme scene in Downfall comes up, everybody's going to start paying attention.
Yeah. But I guess this is one of those movies that I wouldn't necessarily say, you have to see this. I would say it's more like, because I feel like no one's going to love it if you force them to watch it, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm forcing you to watch it.
Well,
however,
I did want to see it. I just didn't know I was heading into a 3-hour movie today.
And I feel like
that's most people
most people want to see it.
Is it really 3? It's got to be more like 2.5. We didn't look at the case.
I don't know. It's a long movie.
It's long. It better not be boring. You're gonna hear about it.
But we can, I guess we can talk about like epics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
After we watch it.
Do you? Can I tell you all the movies I've seen without you since you've been gone? I wrote them all down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, and then the one that we were gonna do a different movie today, and then I kind of had a change of heart on the movie since I saw it. Mm-hmm. Because we were going to watch Under the Silver Lake,
which you told me. Don't watch it.
We're
going to do it on the podcast.
Maybe
I've been holding off for months.
I think maybe we still will.
So I can't watch it still?
But no, I just was thinking about it. I was like, well, I enjoyed the movie. And I would love to watch it with you in particular. However, I'm not sure that I want to promote the movie necessarily. Because it's not... it's kind of...
You had a moral...
I almost wondered if it was a sexist movie, and I think it has an old school. But if it was made in like the 70s or 80s, no one would blink an eye.
Hashtag cancel Under the Silver Lake. Under the Silver Lake is canceled.
Oh, Jesus.
Do you think it's a sophomore slump kind of movie, or was it still like well made and everything? It was just you had some issues with it.
I mean, you and I love It Follows.
Yes.
I thought it was one of the best movies that year, if not the best. I can't remember what else came out, but. This, you can tell he's got a style about him, the director. Mm-hmm. And it's very, it's great. It stands out very well. It's a little Tarantino, actually, which is Under the Silver Lake and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are very, very similar movies.
See, that's really weird to me.
Like, very similar movies in the sense where it's kind of a zany, weird movie set in Hollywood. And there's cults involved.
Oh.
So it's kind of like... It's one of those things. It's.
Wait, what's the cult in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Just the Mansons in the on Spawn Ranch.
I totally forgot about the Mansons.
The Mansons, like there's more than one.
Right, well,
I don't know. I would love to sit there and talk to you about that movie because we can break it down. How's that? Why don't we get the director on and then he can defend himself?
Well, all right. Okay. Well, I'll get on Twitter.
Right,
you
so
get on
what
Instagram.
did you watch? What did you watch?
Here's everything I watched. I even looked at my Netflix
This is all
history.
6 months.
You've seen
9 movies.
I've seen like almost nothing. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, saw that.
Yep.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah. And?
I liked it. It has a very simplistic story, but it really excels when the monsters and the creatures are on screen. I think it had some really disturbing deaths of children.
Great.
And it's like if they had put in some form of gore into the when the kids get killed, it would have been like R for sure. Like
wait, it's not R already?
It's a PG-13 movie.
With deaths of children.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. There's something about it felt really like a nightmare.
Really?
It felt really
so
gross.
It's kind of like one of the other movies we were talking about maybe watching was Trick or Treat. Mm-hmm. We didn't get that far because it was one that you and I have both seen.
Yes.
But that was one of those ones that also kind of like no one heard about it in advance.
There was some sort of politics behind the scenes on that one.
Well, I think it was one of those movies that was shot like a couple of years before it released, and it just sat there. Nobody knew what to do because it's a very short movie.
Now it's sort of a cult favorite.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. Yeah. It's not. It's just, but it's about a series of short stories, basically.
Right, all kind of happening on the same night, same Halloween,
woven and. Anyway, okay.
Anyway, I've been watching for a long time now. I've been watching all the James Bond movies in order. Mm-hmm. And the ones I've seen since you were in town in reverse order: Octopussy, For Your Eyes Only, Moonraker, and Spy Who Loved Me. And I don't really like any of those. Those are all Roger Moore ones. I think Octopussy is Roger Moore's last one before we move into Timothy Dalton.
Why are you doing this?
I never saw all the Bond movies, and I want to
get caught up on.
Yeah.
So you have no.
I mean, the first Bond movie I ever saw was GoldenEye.
Right.
Never saw anything before that.
Wow.
Then I've kind of seen a few of them scattered throughout my life. I've seen License to Kill.
And you're saying it's not worth it?
I don't like the Roger Moore
ones. I know people
ones.
who would fight you for saying that.
I know. I think Man with the Golden Gun is stupid. Ooh. I think Live and Let Die is pretty silly.
Well.
Perhaps racist. I'll let you be the judge on that one.
Okay.
I mean, the Connery movies are the best, I think. Mm-hmm. And On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the first one where you could sense the movies becoming more modern. But that was George Lazenby, and that was the only one he did because he thought he was a big shot and he didn't need James Bond, so he quit. He stopped making them. Then they brought in Roger Moore. And then you get into Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and I like GoldenEye a lot.
Yeah.
I even like Die Another Day. I think that I like both. And then, of course, the Daniel Craig ones are a whole nother world. Like Casino Royale is one of the best Bond movies ever made.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I've been doing. I'm up through Octopussy. Now I have to see Never Say Never Again. That's the one where Connery came back.
Oh, after.
After he'd been gone for all these Roger Moore ones.
Fix Lazenby's.
No, I think...
What was it?
That was Diamonds Are Forever.
Oh, okay.
He fixed Lazenby's, and then Roger Moore took over, and then Sean Connery came back in the 80s, 1983, to do Never Say Never Again with Kim Basinger.
Oh.
I saw Midsummer.
I did too.
You did too? How'd you like it?
Did you know that the director's cut came out yesterday?
Yeah.
And it's half an hour longer?
Half an hour?
Yeah.
Fuck, man. How much more do you need?
I don't know. But it would explain a lot because I felt like if anybody wants to see Midsummer, we might get a little spoilery-ish.
Okay.
So, plug your ears for the next 2 minutes.
What is being added in? Did you hear?
I felt like there were some plot lines that kind of... Well, it was just characters who just, straight up disappeared. And I thought, okay, that's just part of the storytelling aspect of it. But it makes me wonder if...
You're supposed to wonder
this half an hour is
did they actually
seeing what happens to those characters. Because there was a lot... that's actually one of the things I didn't like about it, was that they built up these characters and then go off and, clearly something would happen to them.
Right. We only see what happens to one of them, really.
And we don't.
As it happens.
So maybe that's what the director's cut is.
Perhaps. I think Hereditary was my favorite horror movie.
Which I have not seen.
Oh, okay. Well, it's great. It's on Amazon Prime if you have that. I think it is a better movie, and I think it's my favorite horror movie of like the last 5 years at least.
Yeah.
Or when did It Follows come out? It's a different kind of movie than It Follows.
Wasn't it
It's not a slasher movie.
2017?
17? That recent?
I feel like it would have been earlier than that even. Maybe it could have been 2015.
Hereditary works on several levels
Yeah.
at once. As sort of a Rosemary's Baby kind of horror story, as sort of a possession story, and as like a family drama of a family dealing with mental illness and grief. And like if the movie turned out not to have any paranormal trappings whatsoever, it still would have been an amazing movie.
Wow. Okay.
I hope that didn't spoil anything by saying that it does have some paranormal elements in there.
No.
Anyway, Midsummer, good movie, not as good as Hereditary, but I still liked it.
Is this just we're gonna just go through Mark's movies that he's seen and
Yep.
how it feels?
We're not gonna do episodes about these, so I'm
All
just
right.
getting them out of the way now. I saw
sounds
the
great.
newest Halloween movie.
I didn't know there was one. Which
This is like the one that ignores all the sequels, and it's a direct sequel to the first movie.
is this Rob Zombie movie too?
No.
Oh.
No. This is David Gordon Green.
Oh, that's
You didn't hear about this? This came out last year.
David Gordon Green.
He wrote and directed a Halloween sequel.
Of All the Real Girls.
Yeah.
George Washington.
Yep.
Interesting.
And Pineapple Express. And that one with Natalie Portman, that was like a Lord of the Rings parody.
Did he do that one?
He did that one. And some TV shows that I finished watching while you were out. Love, Death, and Robots. Meh, I'd skip it. I've been through the first 6 seasons.
Cold. We have friends who worked on that show.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't that good. The first 6 seasons of Dexter. I got two to
I'm
go.
glad you said Dexter because it looked like Voyager from my.
What's wrong with Voyager? I need to finish that too. Chambers, a Netflix series, sort of horror thing. I'd skip that one too. And I've recently been going through The Prisoner, old BBC show with that guy whose name I can't remember.
Yeah,
That is a wacky, surreal spy show.
Yeah.
It's like science fiction.
I've always heard good things. I don't know that I could sit through a show that's old.
It's I watch it at double speed.
So you're not really even experiencing.
I have it on at work.
Really?
I put it on at work and I just get through it.
Okay, can I say, since I've been in New York, I haven't really watched much. Because we were working nonstop and I was exhausted. But there's really, I'm about to shit all over the New York theater scene, or not theaters, movie theater scene, because
You're not speaking of Broadway.
I didn't go to every theater, but there's no like ArcLight.
There's not like
there's big theaters that are basically just shitty and run down, and
there are no theaters that care about the cinematic viewing.
Well, there's
experience.
Alamo Drafthouse, which does, but I swear to God, I can't get a ticket there to save my life.
Oh, they sell out.
It sells out like immediately. It seems like they're missing a theater that could easily dominate the market if there was one. Like if ArcLight built something in like Brooklyn, it'd probably just be. It'd probably put all the other theaters out of business.
I'm sure real estate prices have a lot to do with why there isn't one of those. But that's how the Weinsteins got their start. They owned and operated movie theaters, and they made enough money doing that. They started producing things. One of which we're about to see.
I was gonna say,
The English Patient.
Bringing it back around to that's the only thing that makes me feel dirty about promoting this movie is that it was a Weinstein film. I don't know how much he was connected to it. Obviously, it was a Miramax movie, and I doubt this was one of their pickups after the fact. It seems like they made it.
Yeah, I don't know, but unless the movie is throwing his name all over it, unless they tried to make this into a Harvey Weinstein film, then I think we can disregard any of that stuff for the next couple hours while we watch this movie.
Disregard Harvey.
That's right. I'm just going to pretend it never happened.
Oh, man. Oh, let's go.
All right, play the trailer.
Winner of 9 Academy Awards, including Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture of the Year. They found him in the desert, a man with no name.
I think I was a pilot.
And no country.
Anybody remotely foreign is suddenly a spy.
A man they called the English Patient.
Why you set it out to keep me alive?
Because I'm a nurse.
Now, to unlock the mystery of his past.
Anybody she ever loves tends to die on her.
Ask your saint who he's killed.
They must uncover the truth.
You're in love with him, aren't you?
That will set him free.
The heart is an organ of fire. I believe that.
Named on over 80 top 10 lists. Hailed by critics as a cinematic triumph. Ralph Fiennes, Kristen Scott Thomas, Willem Dafoe, and Academy Award winner Juliette Binoche. In a classic story of adventure, mystery, and passion.
Promise me you'll come back for me.
I promise. I'll come back for you.
The English Patient.
So, initial thoughts.
I'm so glad Harvey Weinstein doesn't have a cameo in this movie. Because then we'd have to address it.
Were you expecting one?
No, not really. But we can safely say he's not in one frame of this movie aside from his credits. So we don't have to talk about him anymore.
Right.
Let's proceed.
Sure. Other thoughts?
Other thoughts. This movie won 9 Oscars. It was nominated for 11. The only ones that... Or like 12, I think, maybe. The only ones
guess?
Oh, sure.
So...
Let me get the list
Best
up in front of me.
Picture. It won, right?
It won Best Picture.
Cinematography.
Won.
Production design.
Art direction, set decoration.
Sure.
Yes, won.
I'm gonna say Kristen Scott Thomas for Best Actress.
Nope.
Best
Nominated.
Supporting.
Best Supporting, Juliette Binoche.
I'm just saying like the I'm
okay.
not saying it won all these.
All right. Okay, keep going.
Ralph Fiennes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5. Julie Binoche.
Yes.
Okay, 6. Score.
I think so. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. No, I guess not. Wait, no, I thought I just saw it. Best Picture, Best Director, Cinematography.
Yeah, Best Director. That was one.
Costume Design, Best Sound.
Sound.
Film Editing, Score. There it is.
Editing score. That's 10.
Yeah. Wait, I think you double counted something. Because it said 9, but the...
Anyway, I mean, it does...
also nominated for Best Screenplay, did not win.
To 11. In my opinion, it deserved all the nominations. Just based on the fact that it is even though it does feel like it was of that era of movies, the 90s, it also doesn't, in a way. It feels like
it felt very classic,
yeah,
Hollywood kind of epic filmmaking in a lot of areas.
Yeah. It does have that Lawrence of Arabia feel. It does have, but it's not like there's not very many modern techniques. Like
no, not
dissolves
really.
Or old school,
yeah,
old school optical.
Some
transitions.
Some scenes had like a roving handheld camera, or a steady cam or something like that. But apart from that, when it was just 2 people talking, they really just stuck with the full medium close-up kind of editing pattern.
Yeah.
Until they get into some more of the intimate moments.
I didn't feel like it was that simple. Like when you say that, it makes it sound like, okay, you've got the wide establishing, and then you've got shot, reverse shot. I didn't feel like the shots were that deconstructed. Like that, I would say was more of a 90s thing that kind of became more so even in the 2000s. Like,
well, I think this
TV now especially is like master shot, medium.
Sure,
close.
yeah. That's just they gotta make the sausage, keep cranking the machine.
Right.
I feel like, and I don't know anything about Walter Murch's experience on the film. Haven't read about it.
Walter Murch was the editor.
Yep, and sound editor, and he won for both, Oscars for both. I think the best editing Oscar came from the cross-cutting between retelling the story in the present, where he's a burned-up dude, and any of these tense moments where the tanks are coming down the road, and Naveen, is it Naveed?
Naveen Andrews.
Andrews is working on defusing a bomb, and the whole place is shaking, and like there are some real high tension moments throughout the film, and then the end when he's trying to get some help to go back to this cave to get Kristen Scott Thomas.
Just gets wrapped up in red tape, and it's like the most frustrating thing.
Yeah,
you're like, and that's in the moment that he actually gives away the maps.
Mm-hmm. Why everybody thought he was a spy, perhaps.
They consider him a traitor for giving away all these Royal Geographical Society maps that the English basically made, and he gives them to the Germans, and that's ultimately why
he just needed a plane.
So many things happen. Yeah, he traded it for a plane to go get Kristen Scott Thomas out of the cave that he left her in. But
I liked it. It's really not my kind of movie. But I can totally see why it was nominated for all these things. Well, it's the kind of thing Hollywood wants you to think Hollywood still makes. And occasionally they do.
Does not. Because it's just like the thing that's different now about epics that Hollywood makes, all these fucking Avenger movies, is that they don't have... It is a style, and it's a cookie cutter style that they've evolved now over the course of however many movies they've made. And this was a style too. I mean, this is obviously a classical style. There's nothing in this movie you couldn't have done in the 70s, outside of a few composites that were pretty terrible.
Yeah, some of them were pretty bad. Some were pretty good. The plane crash near the end.
Yeah.
Like, you had Ray Fiennes in the foreground as that plane is crashing into the camera.
There was only a few frames at the end of it that you could tell still frame.
Yeah, they froze it and then just scaled it up to make it continue.
Just a half second.
There were a few shots I could see that they did freeze frames on just for a few frames.
Or even like you could tell they slowed down some shots before they could interpolate new frames in between. It would just like...
They would just skip a few.
Stuttered look.
Yeah.
But nothing like... That stands out as like nothing ruins the experience.
No, it was fine. I'm pretty sure we only noticed because we know what we're looking at. Anybody who's not watching for that stuff will.
Now you did mention in the movie, and obviously there's some close parallels to like Constant Gardener, even though it's a very, very different movie.
Yeah, different war.
Different. Ray Fiennes plays a completely different character. In this, he's very kind of like strong-willed.
He's a bit of a jerk, actually.
He's kind of a jerk, yeah. But in Constant Gardener, he's very kind of a pushover. And
it's been a while since I've seen that one. It's hard to remember, but I do remember loving the movie.
Yeah, it was. That was another one that I thought was fantastic, and it seems like there's less and less movies like this. I guess. I think told in North Africa or
a few years after
Egypt.
This, they were trying to make more like it. I think there was one called The Four Feathers with Heath Ledger, which was a remake of some old movie based off a book. Like they tried doing more.
There are this
kind of epic, but none of them were very good, or else they never got the attention that they wanted. And I think that kind of culminated in Gladiator, which then spawned its own imitators for the next few years.
Yeah.
But it brought back that, like, we were sort of devolving in genre while advancing in technique.
Would you call them, like, international films in a way? Because they, I guess, originally, like, when they made huge movies like The Egyptian or these movies in the in like classical Hollywood. Mm-hmm. It was like the first time really that Hollywood, they had these massive sets, but occasionally they would set a camera team out to go shoot actual footage.
Got to get that B-roll.
B-roll, but it wasn't just B-roll, or it wasn't just some footage they borrowed from another movie they shot. Mm-hmm. It was actually new footage, and it involved kind of crossing territories to get that, and like kind of expanding the international aspect of it, like breaking outside of your box and going to these places. And
right. Yeah. This is gonna sound real dumb, and I apologize. When was TV invented? When did everybody start getting TVs in their homes more? Was that the 50s? I mean, or was that the 40s?
It was. I think 50s was when it was like commonplace to have a TV in the house.
Okay.
But like 40s, I don't think.
Everybody's still gathering on the radio.
I forget the actual. It was pretty early on though that they had TVs. It just wasn't. They were probably too expensive at the time to be owned until the 50s.
But I think a pretty common strategy for getting people to be interested in whatever film was like, this was shot 10,000 miles from home. It's not like anything else you'll see this year. Yeah. That was the exoticness of it all.
Yeah.
And now today, like, everything's a blue screen. We can make up whatever we want.
Well, it's interesting to me because this movie is it's kind of got a different, like, it's got a different base to it. Like, it's very, nowadays, if they go make a movie in the Middle East, it's like, it's always like a war movie, or it's about, all these like current politics related things. And yet a movie like this kind of breaks those ties. It's more,
it's about the relationship between Ray Fiennes and Kristen Scott, blah, blah, blah. And the war, yeah, Thomas.
Thomas is not a hard name to remember.
I just forgot the name. The movie is not really about the war. The war is something that happens to them.
To them, yeah. Well, and he always says, like,
he doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't take sides. He doesn't like people. He doesn't care about boundaries or ownership. He doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Right.
And that's why it's probably pretty easy for him to trade the maps.
Yeah, because he doesn't
for a plane, because he's single-minded.
Just these people in their silly war.
Yeah,
they can go off and have it. Or he even says at some point, Willem Dafoe has this whole plot where it's like he ended up getting his thumbs cut off because they thought maybe he was the one who gave the maps to the Germans, and so he thinks it's Ray Fiennes through all this stuff, and he's going to come back and kill him. But ultimately, like, what's done is done. Ray Fiennes has his face basically melted off in a plane crash.
Yeah, for the first 20 minutes of the movie,
yeah,
he's just sort of a ghoul. Like the first shot that we see him in, he's flying a plane, and right after that, they crash or they get shot down.
But even Willem Dafoe says to him, thousands of people died for what you did.
Yeah, and thousands of people did die.
He says, yeah, thousands of people did die, just different ones.
Yeah.
It's like, so he's so clearly detached himself from the other people's war that he doesn't really care about all these boundaries that people put up for themselves.
It's like he spent his whole life in the desert. That's how he lives.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about this political shit that's happening elsewhere.
Well, and it always kind of comes back to that same thing, and the politics of war and throwing up boundaries and walls and whatever. It's like some people define themselves by that.
This is sort of
and other people define themselves by open boundaries and being international. And
yeah, this is like the anti-Casablanca.
Is it? Remind me of the plot of Casablanca, because it's been a while.
Everybody knows the plot for Casablanca. It's not a hard one to remember, Chad. Okay, so like some freedom fighters come into town in Casablanca.
Yes, freedom fighters. Fighters.
Come into town. They're looking for like papers papers that will get them across the border,
sure.
So they can escape the country and get away from the Germans. Rick has his bar where everybody comes no matter what side of the conflict they're on, because that's like neutral territory. And Rick, Humphrey Bogart, is neutral himself. He doesn't care about the war. But by the end of the movie, he has taken sides and he's helped Ilsa, or whatever her name is, get the papers and sends her off on a plane. He doesn't get the girl even though he could. He sends her off to be a patriot and like win the war. And that was of that time. Mm-hmm. Like this guy who's not interested, he learns to love his country again and make personal sacrifices for it.
All right.
This movie, he still doesn't care about the war. He just was trying to save the girl.
Well, he was always kind of removed from it, but this is also, like, Casablanca takes place in the middle of the war, right?
Yes, it's already happened.
This is kind of like
mostly
pre-war.
before. Well, it's at the before the war starts, and then immediately, like as it's ending.
Yeah, because he's like kind of injured and healing through the.
He's been in there for 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the makeup, because I didn't see a nomination or anything for best makeup, but maybe I missed it. He kind of just looks like a zombie the whole movie.
Yeah.
In that form.
And we watched it on Blu-ray on Mark's TV.
This is not the best TV.
It's seen better days. But it was still Blu-ray. And
it's
not a 4K scan, I will say that. It doesn't look like
that. It still looked like an up-res DVD essentially. But again, that could be the TV. I should get a better TV. What was I saying? He looks like a zombie.
Yeah.
Like we get close enough to his face. I think most people on the news or just at various points in their life, they've seen a burn victim, somebody who's healed and their whole face is scarred up and it's kind of all smooth like that. This makeup in this movie was so obviously makeup, it kind of took me out of all of his close-ups. Really? You could see at the corner of his mouth, like the edge of the mask that he was wearing. It was all kind of like crinkling up. I thought. Well, just a few years later, they did the Mason Verger makeup in Hannibal, which is amazing. And that's a similar kind of look, except like one of his eyeballs is always open.
I don't remember.
You don't remember? I'll never forget, unfortunately. But the Gary Oldman character in Hannibal, much worse movie than this. Sorry, Ridley. But the makeup, despite only being a few years later, it looks like it was made 20 years earlier.
I see. You made the Voldemort comment early on because honestly, Ray Fiennes looks like Voldemort because it's
with a nose.
Yeah, with a nose though. But like that's kind of how he just looks. It didn't really bother me. I mean, you could look at it and go, yeah, that's fake, but it doesn't. It didn't take me out of the movie necessarily.
I guess when you got a character telling a dramatic story and you're tight on a close-up, you want to be looking at their eyes. And I was just examining the makeup job. It kind of drew me away from the supposed focal point.
Do you think that, because now if they did this, they'd probably just do it digitally.
Probably.
To not have to put Ray Fiennes through
it's quite a
5 hours of makeup every day.
Yeah, they would still have to get all those markers on his face. I'm sure he'd hate that too. I don't know. Some filmmakers would still use makeup because quite a lot of the movie, half the movie is him post plane crash.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do makeup at that point?
Do you feel like all these like the nominations were deserved?
I don't know how the Academy makes up their minds. It's just a bunch of people.
Well, like
voting.
performance-wise, would you like you've seen a lot of Willem Dafoe movies. You've seen a lot of Ray Fiennes movies.
Rafe's nomination definitely deserved.
Yeah,
I think he should have won. Probably. I forget what came out that year. That was the 1997 awards.
98, 97.
Yeah, movie came out in 96, so it was February of 97 or whenever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't recall now who else was nominated. He earned it. Juliette Binoche, she won. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there are so few good roles for women. There always have been. So that one actually had some meat on it. She had a full...
I felt like they both the Kristen Scott Thomas role and the Julie Binoche role, Like, were well-rounded.
Yes, and yeah, they were.
Characters,
I was just speaking of Juliette Binoche's in particular.
And they both kind of have their own full storyline.
The sort of inner turmoil she's going through, like she's in love with Ray Fiennes, but she's married to Colin Firth. And it's said a few times in the movie, they were friends for years before they were married.
Right.
And he says like they were more like brother and sister before they got married. She was
always crying on my shoulder about other men, and then finally I convinced her to cry on my shoulder.
He was in the friend zone
for me,
but he got out of the friend zone. But
that sexist term.
Clearly, there was some lack of confidence on his part.
Well, he just probably wasn't as interesting as someone like Ray Fiennes' character, who's so. I mean, he's intimidating for one. Mm-hmm. Their dance, like he has a dance with Kristen Scott Thomas, like early on, and he's just friendly dance, and he's like staring bullets like straight through her, like
just
I'm gonna eat
giving
you
her
alive.
this stink eye,
and she was like, she's clearly intimidated, and she seemed like a woman who clearly is adventurous, does whatever she wants. She's grown up out in the field, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You know.
Oh, I remember now. They get trapped in a car under sand during a sandstorm.
They get stuck in this extreme
and that's when
situation, and they get to know each other like personally before it becomes anything else, and it naturally just evolves into this kind of lustful relationship that they have. Which that was the one thing I wondered, is if it was more than just lust.
I think it was. They were starting. There was a sort of poetry between them that he didn't have for anybody else. But even his best friends.
Is Ray Fiennes kind of a child in this movie? Because he kind of seems like somebody who hasn't. He seems well versed, but at the same time he seems completely young in like the love aspect of his life. So like he doesn't seem like he's very experienced with love.
As soon as she tries to break it off, he takes it super personally.
Yeah, which is that's what showing up to me. Like, he's super young, but
I don't know. I believe that he really did feel something.
Well, I definitely believe he felt something. It was a question of whether or not he was.
But really,
whether or not he's emotionally grown, or if he's kind of stunted in this.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know enough about him to really make the call on like, oh, well, it's just a first woman he's seen in 10 years, so of course he's gonna go head over heels. Mm-hmm. We don't know any of that.
And Julie Binoche, like her character, I mean, the movie almost, since hers is the present storyline.
Yes,
because she's the one she nurses Ray Fiennes back to health after he's had a horrific plane crash and his skin's melted off. So we know because we see Kristen Scott Thomas in the airplane with him when it crashes at the beginning of the movie. Yeah. So we know immediately
she looks asleep,
that she's dead, presumably from that plane crash.
Right, because they don't find her.
She just looks like she's asleep in the plane.
Though that would be pretty hard to sleep in an open biplane
before they're shot out of the sky by the Germans.
Freaking Germans.
Probably the same Germans that sold him the airplane. But Julie Binoche's character, who's French Canadian from Montreal, she early on, like everyone she knows or is friends with dies. Like her
friend that she's lending money to have a good night in the city or whatever
drives up ahead,
immediately gets blown up by a landmine. So she's like, I've had it. I'm done with this. I'm taking my patient and I'm gonna live in this abandoned house.
No.
And they let her. I can't believe they just go like, all right, see ya.
Yeah, because she even says at one point, she's like, it's not desertion. The war is almost over. Which somehow, I'm guessing if you brought that into a court of law, it may not work. But her character's kind of interesting in a way. Like she kind of has that stereotypical French like writing for her character. Like, of course, like I feel like stereotypical French, when I say that, just means like, oh, of course the woman's gonna think romantically and like always paint flowers on any kind of topic, whatever. And of course, and that's kind of what she does. She kind of brings life back into the room, even though she is kind of a troubled person herself. But just she's the one who kind of brings everything back to life, so to speak, for at least a little bit. The Willem Dafoe character, it seems like she kind of brings him back from the dead, so to speak, too, even though he's wounded, like he's missing his thumbs, and he's seen some tough times, but he doesn't necessarily seem to have a goal other than to kill whoever gave the maps away.
But we don't know that for a very long time.
He kind of gives up on that, and I don't know why he stays there. It's not like he's interrogating Ralph Fiennes all the time. He does sometimes. Other times he's carrying him through the rain.
He is a spy, and he is a thief, so he's sort of waiting. He's doing it gradually. If he just came out and asked, of course, he'd climb up.
Naveen Andrews has a pretty good role in this as a bomb diffuser, basically. And he's he and Julie Binoche, of course, fall in love. Naveen Andrews is Saeed from Lost.
And there was a part where he's just, after a friend of his dies, he's sitting alone inside a locked barn or whatever that is, and just sort of sitting there looking pretty intense in the dark. And I was like, that's how he got the role on Lost. I remember him just sort of being like the quiet, strong type on that show.
But I didn't really think of it until now, but they do kind of have similar characters. Like Naveen Andrews, like his best friend basically blows up after the war because he's out partying and he stands on top of a statue to celebrate, and the statue explodes, kills him.
Awful.
And so he kind of loses people that he loves and gets close to as well, just like Julie Binoche's character.
In the first flashback we get to Ralph Fiennes out in the desert when Kristen Scott Thomas shows up. She's making all these comments like, oh yeah, I enjoyed your letter. I've never seen somebody write with so few adjectives before. Like that's revealing something about his character. He's not a touchy-feely kind of guy. He's just the facts. Like a car is a car, a broken car, fancy car, expensive. Like it's still a car. And then she says, "Well, there's more than one kind of love: platonic love, romantic love." And he says, "Well, he got me there." And that's what the rest of the movie is kind of exploring. It's all these different kinds of love. There's, I presume that guy driving the Jeep was a gay man, and he was involved with the guy up top. He was feeding him fruit or something out the window, and it causes a car crash.
Oh yeah. They
sort of have a moment going like, well, what would people think about this strange feeling,
I didn't interpret the scene that way, but it's interesting that you say that because it's probably how it was meant. But it didn't.
Maybe I'm just a homophobe.
But it was just. That's why I do like movies like this, because it's like there's layers to it, and you don't necessarily pick up everything, but you still enjoy it. But when you rewatch whatever, you can find more layers to it.
Colin Firth and Kristen Scott Thomas, he thought they had romantic love. She disagreed. She had romantic love with Ralph Fiennes. Then there's the love between the two guys who are the diffusers. Like the whole war, we're seeing all these different relationships.
Like, why do I feel like this after his friend blows up? And Julie Binoche is like, it's because you loved him. And he's like thinking, yeah, but can I?
Yeah, not everything is a sexual love or romantic love.
So you would say that that's more the theme of the movie than
I think so.
Everything that's happening.
The rest is there's this definite story and a plot all happening with our two main characters, but thematically, it's a love story between everybody.
Right.
Even a sort of national pride kind of love. Burnt Up Ray Fiennes says, why do people get so excited when they meet somebody from where they live? Yeah. Well, there's a war going on. That sort of thing is important now.
Well, that ties into his international, his feeling that he's a person of the world and not just a person of a country.
And maybe that's partly why he feels alone too, because he doesn't really have one place he originates from. He's a man of the world, but that means he doesn't have that kind of friendship with people. He can't say, like, oh, I grew up 2 miles away from you. Right. That sort of thing. He's never had that, presumably.
It is interesting that that is the theme of the movie. And the more I think about it, the more I do believe that this movie has the belief that borders are wrong. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just
said it
because
before
we're
on this
seeing it from
podcast,
his characters.
Every war movie is an anti-war movie. Yeah. There are very few movies that try to make war seem awesome. Yeah. Let's do this more often, guys. Yeah.
Well, even there's comments about God in this movie, and like Ray Fiennes is like, well, God doesn't exist, but sure.
I hope someone looks out for you anyway.
Yeah, right. So there's kind of this, not anti-God. It's just that I think maybe it's God is passé.
Maybe Rafe's character is just an edgelord.
Ray Fiennes and
he's just Kristen like, I don't care about anything.
Kristen Scott Thomas are having sex in the middle of a Christmas Carol.
People are singing Silent Night, Holy Night. Yeah. And they're on the other side of a frosted glass
window. You can see them through the glass.
While Colin Firth is, unbeknownst to them, dressed as Santa Claus.
And the only real hanging out with everybody. Nationalist pride you see, really, is the moment Naveen Andrews is trying to defuse a bomb. And suddenly the water starts rumbling. And it's because the Americans are coming through with their tanks to celebrating. The war. They're like on a celebratory parade.
And the goddamn celebrations
are
going to...
He's freaking out because he's like, what does he say? I'm getting really pissed off. Because the water's vibrating and it's going to blow up the bomb in his face. Because of these...
Did he say something like, this significantly angers me or something like that?
Because these idiots are celebrating and it's like, you see, but it's especially on display with the Americans, because throughout the movie, you don't necessarily, it's not obvious immediately that they're Canadians to me.
They say it.
Julie Binoche. But you watch it from, I guess, maybe it's just from our perspective as Americans watching.
Weren't the Canadians, on the forefront of, the medical field? Most of the medics were Canadians?
That I do not know.
Oh, I thought there was something like that. Maybe I haven't seen enough World War II movies.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But what I'm saying is, you don't see Canadian flags anywhere. The only time you ever I think the only time you see a flag is when it's the American flag on the tanks coming in to celebrate.
And the guy was going to hang the Union Jack on that statue till he got blowed up real good.
Right, that's true.
But it wasn't unfurled. It wasn't a statement.
And both times, the Americans, basically, you could even hear it in the ADR, they're catcalling Julie Binoche as they're driving by her. They're brash, they're loud, they're bombastic, and they're
ugly.
They're
Americans.
Also representing the ideal of a nationalism, cheering, hey, we've won. All right, great, let's go harass women in the streets.
Right.
That sort of
thing. They almost set off another bomb, just by being who they are.
Yeah. So, the movie clearly has this not, I guess it is pretty obvious. It's not under the surface. It's here you go. Yeah. We're going to get the audience mad at the Americans too for cheering and celebrating.
Right. Even when they see a guy running at them with a flag yelling stop, they're just like, huh?
They're like,
what?
Oh, cool, he wants a party too. How did you feel? Because obviously this director's not with us anymore.
Anthony Minghella.
Yep.
Minghella. Hard G on that. Minghella?
No. Anthony Minghella, who also directed Cold Mountain. another
and
epic in a way, but
son is an
it's
actor.
kind of flawed. His son,
He was in
Max,
Social Network.
is in Social Network, and Max is now directing too. I believe he just directed.
Very nice.
He directed
Nepotism, alive and well.
Is it nepotism if
Yes.
his father's passed on? And
Still
cannot-
nepotism.
Okay,
Because
anyway.
it's still the name.
But Max cast Elle Fanning in something Teen Spirit. That's what it is. Yeah, Teen Spirit.
What is that?
It came out last year. It's about.
Is it like
or
Teen
this
Witch?
year. No, it's like a. She's a singer or something like that.
Ah.
In any case,
Is it about Nirvana?
no,
Does she play Kurt Cobain?
no. In any case, Minghella to me is like an era of filmmakers gone. I would actually say that Minghella is a lot like of the filmmakers that are around today. Christopher Nolan, just the very broad epic styles. I would even say Fincher, to be honest.
I don't know that I've ever seen Fincher do an epic.
Benjamin Button.
Never saw it.
Well,
So I've never seen Fincher do an epic.
it's just in the sense of like, and maybe it's because I'm working for a filmmaker now that is very constantly changing styles or working with camera moves and such that aren't necessarily like having worked for Fincher and now with who I'm with now, it's like two such extremely different styles where I'm working with somebody now who's very innovative in the way that they do things, and not to say that Fincher is not, but it's a very different, more standard style of filmmaking, like Roman Polanski is very much the same, similar, like you get this epic story out of simple images, where it's not crazy camera moves, it's not crazy this and that, it's just storytelling through very unique, sometimes long camera shots, like very master frames, and things of that nature. I guess Tarantino kind of does it, but Tarantino is probably more stylized than any of them.
Yeah. I think when you're watching a Tarantino shot like that, he's trying to let you know that he's present in every,
Here I am,
every frame.
as someone's head explodes.
Well, I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I finally made time.
Was it better or worse than you imagined?
I had no preconceived notions for this movie. I didn't know what the plot was at all. All I knew was that we see this burned up guy and it turns out to be Ray Fiennes. I knew it had a flashback kind of structure, but I didn't know if it was going to be like, ooh, nobody knows who this man is. And now we're going to, for the middle 2 hours of the movie, we're going to spend all of it in flashback and then come back just to like finish it up. This one was constantly back and forth, and both storylines kind of were weaving together in a good way.
I would like to talk more about that in general, because I felt like usually it's a little too on the nose, the way they did it. But this movie, I felt like it was very natural how it seamlessly kind of went back and forth.
Yeah, I'd have to
It
really
took
look
a while,
closer.
actually.
I'd have to look closer to really examine those things, but nothing felt out of place or like, oh, here we go with another flashback.
It didn't seem like anything was cut, because it felt like everything was deliberate in a way. Like, because there was usually a transitional, and it was usually brought on by sound. There was a song being played or somebody tapping something, and that tapping would lead into some other like parade or something in the flashback, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there was always like that, he's always humming music or something. Ray finds his character, and they kind of almost use that to kind of bounce back and forth too. Has Walter Murch edited anything recently? Because I can't remember the last time I saw his name.
Let's pause briefly while I look that up.
Walter Murch, of course, also did Apocalypse Now. I believe he did The Conversation as well.
I think so.
2 Francis Ford Coppola movies.
Wow. The last big movie he edited was Tomorrowland, the George Clooney movie.
So it's quite a while.
Coup 53, 2019. I don't know what that is. Feature documentary.
Okay, so he's...
So the last narrative, fiction feature he edited was Tomorrowland. Documentary, Particle Fever, TV movie, The Wolfman, and Tetro with Coppola, Youth Without Youth, another Coppola, Jarhead with Sam Mendes, Cold Mountain.
Yeah, so he...
Oh, of course, Talented Mr. Ripley, another Anthony Minghella movie.
And
I love that one.
That's right, an English Patient. So
that was like their follow-up to The English Patient was Talented Mr. Ripley, which I absolutely love.
And, I mean, this is a guy who basically wrote the book on editing. Modern editing, I would say.
Literally. He's written at least one book on editing. I think it's called Blink of the Eye or Blink of an Eye.
Yeah. I know that was one of Tyler's books. Our friend Tyler Nelson, who's an editor. It was always one of the books on the bookshelf that he always would refer to. And, I absolutely idolized Walter Murch. But
isn't this the guy who also invented a lot of the sound effects for Star Wars?
Yeah, I think it's either that or Ben Burt.
Oh, I'm thinking of Ben Burt.
But he did a lot for Apocalypse Now. They did a lot of it. But he's always been like kind of a sound editor too.
Yeah.
But he definitely brought in, I mean, he was a part of that new generation of filmmakers, which was like the film school generation, which is like the first filmmakers from film school, like the George Lucases and the Marty Scorsese's. And
he was sound on THX 1138, American Graffiti, The Conversation, Apocalypse Now, Godfather 3.
Whoops. Ghost.
Hey, the sound was amazing, I'm sure.
Ghost,
yeah.
Interesting. Anyway, there's a lot to unpack from this movie. There's a lot of interesting things happening. If you haven't seen it, I would highly suggest it.
And if you got to split it in half, we get it. It's long. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Yeah. You've seen Lawrence of Arabia?
No. Nope.
Oh, okay. Well,
I've seen the first 10 minutes. I've seen up until he does the match.
Just because you watch Prometheus. Because they show that scene in Prometheus.
Yes, that's right. I only turned on Lawrence of Arabia because of its connection to Prometheus.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can't think of much else to say.
No, we covered everything. This is the definitive discussion.
For the first episode of You and I Back Together, we've definitively put our audience to sleep.
We need more jokes. Man, I wish I was
funnier movies.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
Funnier looking? Like Phantom of the Paradise?
We might actually get to do this more often now.
Maybe. Are you going to leave this set up here in my house again?
We could do this again soon.
You son of a bitch. I don't want this
in my way. If you didn't have to work or do something later today, we could have done another one today. But
yeah. Oh, well.
Oh, well.
It's Dragon Wagon.
Gamebox Monthly sends a new awesome indie tabletop game right to your door every month. There are multiple subscriptions to choose from, and you can personalize them to fit your style. Also, you're guaranteed to never get a title you already have, letting you focus on what matters most, having a great time with great people.
So visit GameboxMonthly.com and use the promo code DRAGON to get an exclusive discount just for the hell with this listeners.
Once again, that's GameboxMonthly.com.
Rediscover social.